Good morning. We're going to talk about fuel prices and we're going to talk about spot market and how that's going to affect you. So, bear with me a couple of minutes and we'll do our little intro video that everybody hates and we'll get this party going. Stay tuned. Good morning. So, it's been an interesting week, as you guys know, guys and gals know. So, been a busy week here at Like Trucking. Um, by the way, we have one of our trucks here in Springfield. I got to take a look at it and everything. Look, here's I'm gonna lay this flat out right now. I hope you got your coffee. You got your coffee and your faith, and you're good to go, right? There's a lot of fear mongering out there. Okay, just recognize that for what it is, rebuke it, and just get on with your life. All right, make some wise decisions, but if you got a solid foundation, you'll be fine. If you guys look at my community post from yesterday, I mean every bit of that. One of our trucks got turned in because we actually had to get rid of the person. And essentially, I said, look, here's my 2 cents. You need a solid foundation. Because if you have a solid foundation, even if your house gets blown off the foundation, you've got something solid to build back onto. It's that simple. And if you could build the nicest, coolest house on a foundation of sand. It's going to fail no matter what. But if you have a solid foundation, at least you got something to build back on if it gets destroyed. So, that's all I got to say about that. But there's a lot of fear mongering out there. Oh, look at Sterling, member for 40 months. That's awesome. Sterling's always been a dedicated member of this channel, and I appreciate him very much. I don't talk to him as much as I used to, simply because we're both busy. So, there's a lot of fear mongering out there. Talks of nuclear war and all this stuff. And look, you can call it false flag events. You can call it this. You can call it that. It gets overwhelming. At the end of the day, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. is that pray and just keep working. Just keep doing what you do. Make some preparations, maybe carry an extra mag or two, when you're out and about. But beyond that, everything's out of your control. Brew coffee. That's what you can do about it, right? Fuel prices. We've been here before. Okay. So here's what you do. And we're going to get into some math. So it's going to get boring for a minute. Here in a little bit. And not right this second, but I want to put this out here. For those of you that were around when fuel was super high a couple of years ago, what did you do during those times that brought you here today? So for those of you, say you've been in the spot market for 5 years, you know that you can survive that, okay? Now, what I want to do is go over how to negotiate using fuel as a leverage point. Most of you are doing it wrong. I hear it all the time. Well, I'm asking for money because I got, higher fuel. And I always tell those people the broker don't care about your fuel prices. They don't. They do when it comes to maybe negotiating a fuel surcharge at the table, but you're not invited to that negotiation, right? So the fuel prices are what they are, and how you deal with that is completely up to you. You have no control over the fuel prices and what the broker, well, you might have a little bit of control what the broker pays you. So riddle me this. So if you call on a load, and let's say we're going to use an easy $1,000, okay? If you call on a load, and let's say the lane normally pays about 900, and you go, hey, I'd like to start the bidding at 1,200, and you go, and they go, okay, let me back up because I sound like an idiot. If you go, I need to be at 1,200, and then they're like, well, the lane only pays 15, or 15 days only paying 1,000. Why so high? Well, I got higher fuel prices. Or you could say, well, normally I'd be at 1,000, but because of X amount mileage and X amount this and X amount that. In other words, if you have your fuel mileage averaged out and you got your cost per mile, now, all you cost per day people, calm down a minute, okay? If you got your cost per mile for fuel down, you can say, well, I need to be at an increase of X amount percentage because with this heavy load, I'm only going to get X amount per mile per gallon. And so therefore my fuel cost for this load is going to be X amount percentage more. Now, that might make the broker go, wow, this person really knows their numbers. Okay. So this industry breeds, okay? This industry breeds ignorance. Let me tell you what I mean. They don't want you to be informed. They don't want you to know your numbers. These mega carriers that are charging you $1,500 a week for a truck, they don't want you to know exactly how much per mile you're making. Because if you actually did the math and go, wow, I'm actually just making a little bit more, a little bit less than a company driver, then you'd be out, right? So they give you these promises. You're a lease operator. You're in charge of your ship. Here's what your dispatcher's got for you today. Okay. They don't want you to know your numbers. They want the equivalent to be able to take the line cook at McDonald's, the guy that flips the burgers, and make him the store owner. That's what they want, because then they could tell you exactly how things are. Okay. So don't beat yourself up if you don't know these numbers. Now, you should know these numbers, but here's the other element. The broker will sit there and go, wow, you got your math down. Well, the load still pays $1,000 or $900. So it discouraged people from doing that kind of level of homework, because the broker at the end, he or she's the one with the load, and they're going by what their big bosses tell them. And they don't have to argue with someone that's a fool. In other words, if you sit there and negotiate and use all this math, you throw this math at them and all that, they're going to be like, yeah, this load isn't available anymore. Click. And they want the guy that doesn't do their numbers. They want the guy that's like, oh, will you do it for 800? Yes. Boom. Done. Okay. Now, that's not all incidents, but it's most. Their job is to have a high profit margin, just like your goal is to have a high profit margin. Supply and demand rules the roost. Now, here's the other element. So let's say you bid and win a load that's paying X amount, and it's labeled as 15,000 pounds. Now, we've all done this, and you know where I'm going to go with this, but I'm going to change things up a little bit on you. And you show up, here's back in the door 4, and you're handed a set of bills that said it's 43.4. Okay. So most of us are inclined to call the broker and say, hey, you advertised this wrong. You said it was 15,000 pounds. And so I need more money. Now, one of several things could happen. Number one, they'll just laugh at you. Oh, sorry. I guess I was misinformed. Do you want the load still or not? Well, meanwhile, it's halfway in your trailer. What are you going to do? Reject the load and go, and then possibly burn that relationship? 2, the broker will be like, had no idea. So obviously there's a communication issue, which that opens a whole different can of worms. Okay. Very rarely do I have a broker, and I've had a couple do this, go, oh, I apologize. I was misinformed. And they genuinely were misinformed. They weren't like, oh, I had no idea. Gee, And they go, look, let me throw an extra $100 for detention or layover or something like that. So it's an accessorial, so it all goes to you. Very rarely. But then you might have a broker go, well, okay, well, how much more is this going to cost? And if you go, well, just give me $200 more. How did you come up to that number? And so what I've done in the past is I've actually calculated the actual number and say, okay, if you could add another $163, we're good. Some brokers like dealing with that, but other brokers will be like, I want the dumbass that won't even fight me, right? So when I say that the broker doesn't care about your fuel costs or the fuel prices, then it means that you got to figure out your leverage. They really don't. And even if they did, they wouldn't. They may not even have control over that. You think they're okay? So, and let's say the shoe's on the other foot. Hey, you pick up a load. I've done this before at Pepsi here at the caves. Pick up a load that's supposed to be 44,000 pounds, and you show up, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have half your product, but they're going to ship it anyway. So here's your 4 pallets of Monster energy drinks." And you put a strap on, and you're like, "Cool, I've only got 10,000 pounds in here. I'm good to go." Do you call a broker like, "Hey, man, I know you gave me like 1,500 for this, but man, there's only like 10 pallets or 4 pallets. So I'm going to go ahead and let you give me a new Raycon for 1,200. Are you going to do that?" No. And Brian's got it right here. Always quote for a full truck no matter what, right? And I'll give you an example. So at Landstar, I tried to do the light only load, right? So when a driver that wants me to dispatch them goes, "I only want to do light loads," I get it. Okay. But when you show zero flexibility, that's a problem. And here's why. So I've been on a load at Landstar, and it was a load 15,000 pounds, one and done, easy, right? And I asked, well, where's it picking up? Oh, it's picking up at BIC, BIC. The company that makes pens, right? That's what was in my head. So I'm thinking, oh, this is a load of pens or whatever going to Walmart. So I show up. It was late at night. And I'm back in the dock. And I go to the shipping clerk. He's like, "Yeah, here's your bills. You need to sign this before we load you. And there's your placards." And I look at the bill. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, whoa, this wasn't advertised as hazmat. That's a big no-no at Landstar. Okay, no big deal. I've got my hazmat. That's you have to have your hazmat to go to Landstar, probably for this very reason. So I look at the bills and it says 44.5. Now, this is back when I had my Peterbilt. So I was like, I may not be able to pull this. Not because I was like, oh my gosh, it's a heavy load. This is going to suck. No, it was like, I may not be able to make this legally. So I immediately called as I'm sitting in the truck, my truck's shaking. I immediately call the agent. I'm like, "Hey, man, I think you advertised this load wrong." But I said it in a nicer way. It's like, and what it wasn't pens. It was, what else does BIC make? Lighters. Well, what do lighters need? Lighter fluid. That's why it was hazmat. That's why it was 44.5. And he literally goes, "Man, that's really weird because these are usually 15 to 20,000 pounds a piece. That's really weird that the blah, 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 blah. Well, what would you like me to do, sir?" And I'm like, I didn't have a clue. I wanted more money. Give me more money. And so the trick was at Landstar, the agents could take $200 or $300, not change the overall rate. Okay, let's say you booked a load for 1,500. They would take an extra 200 from that 1,500 and put it as fuel surcharge, because at Landstar you got 100% of the fuel surcharge. And so therefore more money was coming in my pocket. So it was actually kind of a bite against Landstar, the company itself. But the dude knew what he was doing. And he knew that I didn't have a clue. So I was like, but then I told him, I said, "Look, the weight of the load is not what bothers me. It was advertised as 15,000. I may not be able to pull this legally if they won't break the load." So I scaled at a Love's that was just like 2 blocks down, and I was barely in there. And I had to have my tandems almost like 2 notches from the back. It was It was one of those cursed loads. And all it did was justify why I never picked heavy loads. That's why my low bore parameters were always like 35,000, because every time I picked up something over 40,000, I dealt with some ignorance at the shipper that couldn't balance it out on the axles. Or it was 80. Like, I used to pick up at Sherwin-Williams all the time as a company driver, and I can't tell you how many times I go to the back of the trailer, close the doors, and I immediately know that this was going to be overweight. And sure enough, I go scale it, and it's 82,000 pounds. Well, we'll take a couple of thousand pounds off, and then they end up taking 4,000 because they didn't know how to do math over there. Like, there was something that wasn't calculating right over there. And that's probably the kind of job that AI is going to take, you know. So when it comes to the fuel prices, I know that they're going up. And it's difficult, but I will always say, so let me go back. So when I moved my truck from Landstar, my Peterbilt from Landstar to Schneider, I made a little bit more money because I had more consistency, but I still was concerned about weight. Why? Because my truck tended to overheat quite a bit in the summer if I was climbing hills. So I had to be very careful. And I was only getting 5 miles a gallon on those loads. The truck was about to die. So I had to get it. So I got the Kenworth, the green Kenworth that you've seen many pictures of. And at that point, I didn't care about weight anymore. You know why? Because I was getting better fuel mileage with that truck heavy than the other one did light. That truck was meant to pull. Used to be a prime truck, so it's used to climbing mountains of Pennsylvania with the heavy Coke and Pepsi and Rickett Bankheiser loads, and going through Pennsylvania and all that, and it was, you know, it was geared that way. It was meant that way, right? And guess what? My revenue went up. You know why? Because I took out one of my parameters. Now, there was still the frustration of, you know, did I pick lighter loads first? Absolutely, because the frustration of trying to axle it out or whatever, you know, can be frustrating, especially for drivers that don't know how to do that or do that well, or they have a bad setup, like their tandems are in the, or your kingpins in a bad spot. But the point is, you have to know your numbers. So you do your numbers based off of 6 miles a gallon, and then you could do your numbers based off of 7 miles per gallon. And most of you probably don't even know that number. Check your IFTA. Your IFTA is the true story of how much you're actually spending in fuel. And I like Brian's, you know, Zarlene's comment, you know, take the lowest fuel mileage that you average and quote off of that. That way, if there's a surprise, you're good to go. If fuel changes, you're good to go. So if I still quoted my Kenworth like I did my Peterbilt, I was making more money. Why? Because I was trying to cover the cost of the Peterbilt, but I was getting better fuel mileage with the Kenworth, regardless of the load, weight, and size. Here's the thing. You take a company like Schneider, you take a company like Prime, Warner, Swift, any of the big ones. Do you think that when they go and negotiate with Procter and Gamble, they're like, okay, we're not doing anything above 35,000 pounds? For the plant that makes the liquid detergents, you think they're doing that? If all the trucking companies in that area around that Procter and Gamble never want to haul heavy loads, that gives the mega carriers to go in the leverage because they make their drivers do what they're told to do. Fuel prices, they have a plan for that. They have negotiation strategies for that versus, well, give me more money because fuel's higher. Know your leverage. if you have a load, like, and I've used this example before, but hardly any of you watch and listen, so we're going to say it again. I had a truck in Florida, and there are loads that come out of Savannah, Georgia, that pay really good. They're multi-stop loads, and the brokers always call me, "Hey, you got a truck in the area? You got a truck in the area?" And CFH, he knows what I'm talking about. And I go, "I've got a truck 300 miles away." So if he goes, "Well, I got this one going to, I think it was North Dakota." 99% of the drivers in Atlanta, Georgia, or Savannah, Georgia, or Augusta, Georgia, do not go to North Dakota. They're not looking to do that. So I knew by telling them I had a truck that could possibly pick one of those up, I had leverage. And I knew that it was going to be a premium rate versus the Augusta, Georgia load that went to like Missouri or Ohio or Illinois, right? So here's what I did. He goes, "Well, do you think you'll be able to find a load from, say, Florida to Georgia?" And I said, "Well, no, it's not looking good." I said, "However, what's the rate on this?" And I forget the number. "Okay, if you give me an extra X amount to deadhead up there, we'll pick it up tomorrow. I'll talk to the driver first." Now, more than likely, we're going to deadhead anyways, but now the fuel is paid for. And I think at that time, the fuel cost that particular driver an average of about 87 cents a mile. So I negotiated $1. And so we got an extra. I said, "I'll take your flat rate, but then add X amount for the deadhead, and we'll be your truck." And he did it. But they called me. They needed me. Now, and he could have easily, "Well, we'll just take our chance and find somebody closer." No, he had that amount of room to wiggle in his rate. And we did that load, and we got out of North Dakota, no problem. I had a strategy for that. But see, I approached it smart, right? I didn't say like, "Well, I'm going to deadhead out of there anyway, so I might as well just go pick up your load." No, I didn't do that. And I think I used an odd number because it was like 343 miles or something like that. And I was like, "Well, give me 343, 345, blah, 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 And that worked. Now, you might say, "Well, brokers don't care about your deadhead." If they're calling you and they need you on that specific load, then yes, they should care about your deadhead. I had the same brokerage, but up in the upper Midwest, that was under a similar situation. And she also gave me extra money for the truck to deadhead and the day to get up there because they needed my truck. So no, it's like what Kenny Rogers, know when to fold them, know when to hold them, right? Know your leverage. And just spouting off an extra $200 or $300 in a lane, above the lane average because fuel's higher. Okay, it's justified in the sense that yes, fuel hurts. It's hurting more right now. But you have to go about it the right way. Intelligently. Act like you know what you're doing. At least pretend like you know what you're doing. So, yes, it sucks whenever you pick up a load that was supposed to be light and it's heavy. And look, if you're an owner operator, you can say whatever you want. You can say, "F you, dude. You missed you didn't say this load was right, and so I'm out." Well, what are you going to do? Sit all day and then have a bad mark with that brokerage? No, you approach them nicely. "Look, if we get a little bit more, that'd be great." And maybe they'll give you an extra $100. Maybe. But you've got to go about it the right way. And I'd be curious with CDN and Sage what they would say in those situations. But if you always quote your truck with the worst case scenario fuel price, then you can afford you can make it look like, well, I'll forgive you this time, but let's not make a habit of this, and I'll give you a deal, that kind of thing. So anyways, let's go with the comments and then we'll start with the screen sharing. Gen Z, what's up? This is my other channel, Snorelord OG. Look at that beautiful face. It says hi. Go check out that channel. It's not as active as it should be, but neither am I. Whatever. Jose, good morning. Sterling, good morning. Desert Okie Pam, good morning. Thank you for your membership. Nothing Witty is in the house. Cheap Freight Holler, good morning. Jerome, Shannon's in the house. Cut idle time, drive as fast as needed to make on-time delivery, right? Just started vacation, ignoring the news. I got a long motorcycle ride ahead of me. Check your mic connections. It's clipping a bit. Oh. It might be the dog underneath the desk chewing his bone. That might be what you're hearing. So I gave him once a month I give him this femur bone from the local butcher, and well, he's out of my hair for a minute. We have a wood floor, so that's probably what you're hearing. Don't believe the palation. There's truth, and then there's the truth. Fuel fell it up and go negotiate the best you can. Jerome, pay attention to traffic reports and cameras. One roller found. Stay parked. Cheap Freight Holler, good morning. I'm relaxed next couple of days. Catch up steps. You guys need to work on your English. I'm sorry. I made good ground on you yesterday, hoping for another great day. Divide the rate by 15K, then multiply it by 43.4 makes the brokers gasp. I work for a big carrier now. The estimated weights on my load assignments are always accurate. Well, probably because they got a good relationship with their shippers, right? Best way to avoid is to quit calling the 3-letter brokerages based in Cincinnati. I agree with that. And AI will probably calculate it wrong too because it's being trained by people who don't know what they're doing. That is true as well. CDN, good morning. Good to see you, my friend. Good morning, Steve. I hope all is well. Each owner-operator needs to adopt an analysis mindset. Example, test. If I drive 5 miles an hour slower, do I really save fuel? If no, then try 10 miles per hour slower. If yes, next. Next. If 10 miles saves me X amount, now evaluate how 10 miles an hour slower affects the transit time. Use this analysis to determine overall value of driving 10 miles an hour slower, reduce heartbreaks, etc. That's a lot to stomach. I got drivers that, I see drivers that have zero clue what their home budget is, let alone, how much money they can save by keeping their foot out of it. I've deadheaded from Augusta to Savannah for one of those loads before. Yeah. Drive slower and conserve fuel as much as you can. I agree with that. No, I think it's a mic issue, not a bone on wood floor issue. Really? Well, hold on. If I have to, I'll just check one. Hey. Hope this mic ain't going out. I like it. So, anyways, well, let's try this. Let's do this here because I'm not hearing the clipping in my thing. So if we unplug it. Can you hear me now? How's my audio now? my gosh, what a mess. Can you hear my audio now? Hello? Come on. Let me know. Let's see. Yep, it's on the webcam microphone, so. Can you hear me now? Yes or no, please. Come on. Come on. Let's go. Yes, and it fixed the one issue. Okay, thank you. Well, now I don't feel all important without headphones on, so it sounds weird. So, anyways, let's go to. So I got to figure out what's wrong. Wonder why it's doing that. I don't know if it's a bad cord or the microphone is finally saying "F you." I can hear it doesn't sound as good, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. Could be a bad cord, could be a bad mic. But anyways. Let's share the screen. Works kind of slow right now. I got all my trucks covered. So, sounds like the mic popped when you talked louder. Okay, I'll maybe it's maybe I'm clipping it like it's too high. So I'll have to look at the settings. Every time Windows updates, it messes with the settings. Messes with the settings. Hey, buddy. Hey, careful. Careful. Here. Here you go. Here. If you wear it, make it a parrot. Okay. Look, if you're going out west in the upper northwest, you've got a hard road ahead of you. I got one truck up there. Yeah. And then, of course, you got the red flag, which usually means wind. So if you're going across I-30, if you're going past I-35 west, you're looking at some bad weather, some wind at least. A lot of blowovers yesterday. So, and then market conditions. I'm not really going to go in depth on these, other than something I want to address. All the market analysis people are freaking out. I won't name them because there's several that I watch on occasion, usually in the form of Instagram posts. Nobody knows what's going on. Everybody keeps trying to make predictions. And so what I'm experiencing is they're driving the rates down in van a little bit on some lanes. But most of the trucks I'm seeing here at Like Trucking, they're doing pretty good because they're picking this stuff like multi-stop. There's a lot of multi-stop loads on our board right now. And those drivers are doing pretty good with them. Some lanes are struggling more than others. And it seems like the AI pricing has knocked everything down a little bit. How do I know that? Because all the brokers are saying the same thing. It seemed like for a minute I was getting above the 15-day. Now I'm getting below the 15-day on most stuff. Not everything, but most. So I've had to fight a little bit harder for the dollars this week. As you can see in van, it's back in the loose. It was flirting with neutral a little bit. Now it's a little bit down lower. But look at flatbed. Now, I've said this before. We're one black swan event from all of this changing. And the news is gonna, dude, you gotta the news is gonna tell you to be fearful of it. But if you're in a flatbed, you're taking full advantage of it. Reefer is doing pretty good, which is, in my experience, is interesting because this is usually planting season. But for the most part, we're in this neutral. This is good. This is a good sign. But as you can see, the rates have held steady from last month, 241. But the trend is still up for flatbed, and the trend's coming down for reefer. Volumes are slightly higher at this time of the year than in prior years, so our volumes are still looking pretty good comparatively. Capacity is tightened, so that's what that chart is. I'm not going to get into the science of this. You know, and here's the thing with these charts. I don't sit there and like, okay, before I dispatch any trucks, I'm going to check these charts and they're going to tell me where to go. Most drivers don't want to be told where to go. So, but if I have a driver that's like, just make me some money, then I start utilizing some tools that I have at my disposal to try to come up with strategies. Be calm when the experts are freaking out. That's true. And look, most people's freakouts are because they're either putting on a show or they don't know how to handle their own emotions. Remember, a boring guy like me telling you, yeah, just deal with it, doesn't get as many clicks as the Alex Jones types that will tell you that the world's about to end. Okay? They make more clicks. That dude makes way more money than I do, right? Based off of telling you things that you should be afraid of. This chart's saying that it's 3 times harder to locate flatbed capacity than van. So now, usually what happens is a bunch of people in their boxes will go, oh, I'm going to become a flatbedder. Well, then it drops a little bit. It's a tug of war, right? People are always trying to pivot, thinking that they're ahead of the game, when in reality, you just need to be consistently good at what you do. There's truck stops rates for region. As you can see, the West is a crap show, so don't even go there. Spot loads on truck stop are a little bit lower than they were. They're around the same, if not a little bit lower than the 5-year average, but they're definitely higher than last year. That's what that orange mark is. Emotional blackmail in trucking, right? Here's your fuel price increases. Look at this. This is a picture right here. Doesn't really blow it up if I click on it. Texas, North Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi, Texas, North Carolina. Some is Laredo jumped as high as $1.48 per gallon. That's a huge jump. So something to be aware. If you think this is going to put you out of business, then you are already out of business. If you think if this is enough to put you out of business, then make a strategy to keep yourself afloat. This is where the foundation thing that I talked about earlier comes into play. If we're all paying $8 a gallon for diesel at the end of the year, then that's going to be a problem for a lot of people. That will collapse the economy pretty much. But I imagine the firepower will hopefully prevent that from happening. Or maybe that's on purpose. Either way, you have no control over it other than how you react to it. Civilian unemployment rate, seasonally adjusted. Click and drag within the chart to zoom in on time periods. And it's not letting me do that. Market data, oil hit $120 a barrel Monday morning before pulling back to 106. I think the last time I checked it was in the 80s. The national AAA average price for diesel as of March 9th is $4.65 a gallon. So that's the price you want to quote everything at. The U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments last week on a groundbreaking case involving broker liability. With the decision expected by the end of July, this ruling will reshape liability across the freight brokerage industry. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Why does that matter? Well, because everybody gets annoyed with the brokers wanting your CDL and a copy, you with the thumbs up in front of your truck and the whole 9 yards. Well, they're going to start looking into your safety score a little bit deeper. National Weather Service issues severe winter weather alerts for the Pacific Northwest and Colorado Rockies, impacting travel, which we demonstrated earlier. Multi-million-dollar shipment of Tucker Carlson's ALP was stolen last week, just hours after it was launched. Wow. The private equity firm Thoma Bravo agreed to a deal to acquire third-party logistics provider WWX Group, Worldwide Express, and merge it with an existing portfolio company. Worldwide ranks number 17 on the Transport Topics Top 100 list of the largest logistic companies in North America. A Connecticut trucking company's owner has pleaded guilty to wire fraud after creating 22 fake carrier accounts inside Amazon logistics system to book loads and submit fraudulent invoices. The rest of the message was clipped there. Self-driving truck software developer Torque took another step closer to launching commercial driverless operations in 2027 as Freightliner Cascadia is equipped with Torque's autonomous driving software began testing in Michigan, not Texas, not Arizona, but Michigan, adding to trials already underway on roads in the Dallas-Fort Worth area near Blacksburg, Virginia. American employers unexpectedly cut 92,000 jobs last month, a sign that the labor market remains under strain. The unemployment rate blipped to 4.4%. United States ISM manufacturing slipped to 52.4 in February from 52.6 in January, but remained above market expectations at 51.8. This reading signaled a second consecutive month of expansion in the manufacturing sector. So this is what I'm talking about. Labor market remains under strain. 92,000 jobs cut, but anyways, market's showing sign of expansion, so we're good, right? See, that's the thing. Have a plan in place, either scenario, right? CMV Blitz schedule, May 12th through the 16th, July 12th through the 18th. So there you go. So market summary. This is the icing here. The domestic truckload sector is tightening further this week with steady to improving freight demand, supporting elevated spot rates across dry van, reefer, and flatbed segments. Capacity remains constrained due to ongoing carrier exits, limited driver availability, and reduced equipment flexibility, leading to higher load-to-truck ratios, rejection rates in key lanes, especially in the Midwest. Diesel prices have surged with the national average climbing above $4 per gallon recently, driven by geopolitical tensions. That's the stuff that you can't control. You think your vote matters, but at the end, they're going to do what they do once you vote them in anyways. Tight inventories and lingering winter demand. The sharp rise adds significant cost pressure on carriers, eroding margins and forcing more selective load acceptance or demands for higher compensation to cover fuel. which we talked about at the beginning of this video. The interplay of dwindling capacity and escalating operating costs is driving upward momentum on spot rates. Carriers are gaining leverage to push line haul and all-in pricing higher, with fuel premiums increasingly baked in. Near-term outlook, continued rate support and potential further increases if capacity stays tight and diesel volatility holds, setting the stage for stronger pricing into spring despite broader demand moderation risks. There you go. So let's take a look at this map here. This is the 123 low board 48065. You want to try it out for free for 30 days. Use my code, my name, whatever. Tell Lauren I sent you. This is for Van. Volumes are pretty good. But I want to show you guys something. Of course, you know, this is DAT, the industry standard, right? Let's do something here. Let's take a load. Let's do Columbus, Ohio. 150-mile radius, going anywhere today. How many loads are on the board, do you think? 1,891. Result limits reached. Okay. So let's do a 50-mile radius. Let's cut our deadhead. That's a good way to save on fuel. Drop your deadhead down a little bit. In Columbus, you can do that. Sebring, Nebraska, you can't. Right? 477 loads. Now, let's go back to 150 here. $1,869 loads. Now, if we put this for Monday, 1,387. That's pretty good too. But there have been times when I see like a 500 load decrease just by booking ahead. You lose a little bit of leverage when you book too far ahead. So let's go back to 50 and see what it is for Monday. 329 loads versus for today, 495. Highest paying load on this board is 226 a mile. $5,000 to go to Hermiston, Oregon. And of course, all of it's going west. Well, if you remember something, look at that. This is why you're making your money going into the west, because it's going to suck coming out. Here's one to Orlando. Hebron, Ohio, $3,000 going to Orlando. Yesterday, I couldn't get these people above 28. But now it's day of. It's ready to go. Okay? So booking a day ahead sometimes can be detrimental. You're leaving money on the table. But see, when you have this many loads within this radius, you have the luxury of waiting till last minute to book. Now, let's pick a random out west place. Let's do North Platte. Let's do North Platte. Nebraska. 150-mile radius of today. How many loads are there? 27 for today. How many are for Monday? 22. do you think you have leverage in this area? Because if you go to the dashboard and you look and you go down to Nebraska, 336 loads going in and 160 out. That means there's 336 trucks coming into the state, bringing loads today, and only 160 of them are going to be able to get something coming out. Whereas if you go down to Ohio, you got more out than in. But you also got more loads within your radius. So if we go back and flip this around and we do Columbus to North Platte, Nebraska. How many loads are on here? Well, it's Monday. Let's do for today. 0. There's no loads going there. So luckily we don't live in Nebraska, right? Do you see how I just took all my choices out by needing something specific? Now, the other thing you can do is take out North Platte. Let's say I'm going to haul nothing but light loads. Well, when you have 1,800 loads within a 150-mile radius, let's reduce this down to, we'll do 100. That brings it down to 943. Now, let's put in 35,000 pounds. Still got 326. Let's say we want to go to Missouri. Let's put in St. Louis. Search. We're down to 11, right? So when you're feeling overwhelmed with the low board with all the choices you got because you kick butt and you put yourself in a good spot, then this is how you do that, right? And here you go. Lockburn, Ohio, almost $3 a mile, paying $1,400, picking up at $1,400 today, delivering Monday at $1,400. Not a great delivery time, but it says 2 stops. Mount Sterling, Illinois, that's going to be Walmart. I think. 17,000 pounds. So now if we take out the weight limit, it goes from 11 to 15. If we take out St. Louis, we're back to 939. So let's do Jacksonville, Florida, right, for the weekend. Let's get a good Florida load for the weekend. And we'll do a 350-mile radius. That'll bring in Atlanta, and that will bring in the southern Florida that we don't like. 96 results. Is that right? Lockburn to Jupiter, that's pretty far down. This, for only $100 less, you can only go to Jacksonville. Nolan's got that, 39,000 pounds. But hey, Steve, I don't want to haul anything above 35. Well, then maybe this load ain't for you, but you're going to pass on 380 a mile for $3,200, provided that the times are decent. Right, and then of course you got a bunch of Miami. Here's here's R2X spamming the board with 3,000 postings. So this 96 results gets a little bit of it's modified, right? That's why when people are like, well, 123 doesn't have the volume that DAT does. Yeah, but I really don't see a lot of those multiple postings like they do. I mean, I do. And that's a broker specific thing. It's not just TQL that does that. A lot of them do that. And someone will try to hide 10 different postings as little different changes in the city. So let's take a look at Ohio here. 604 outbound. 368 a mile, go to Ashland, Virginia. Only $400 go to Shelbyville, Kentucky for 274 miles. So this is not a good load. There's no reason why that needs to be posted like that. It's a full truckload. It's not an LTL. So let's sort this by highest rate. See where the high stuff is coming out of Ohio. $5,000 to go to Portland. Bunch of those. Okay, it's the same thing out west. These rates aren't as good as what I was seeing on DAT. Yeah, these aren't like here, $1.82 picking up next Thursday. Yeah, you have zero leverage. There's not even a reason to call on this load. Unless you know you're going to land in Phoenix on Thursday. But by then, a lot can happen between March 13th and March 18th, right? So don't even mess with this. What you do is you check the Phoenix market. How many loads can I get out of there if I go to Phoenix? Same thing with Miami, right? Or Vegas. I'll give you an example. So this is for tomorrow. So Saturday, a little bit of leverage, right? They're at 35. Rate Check's got it at 40. And Cargo Chief's got it at 37. The Cargo Chief number has been a little bit more accurate of what I've been able to achieve than the 15-day market on DAT or lately. It always shifts. It always shifts, especially when there's a huge increase all of a sudden or a decrease all of a sudden. So there's our estimated fuel costs. Tolls is 85.35. So this is going out to Vegas. Now, we go down here. How many backhauls are in Vegas? There's 18 going in, or 15 out of Las Vegas. So let's take a look at them. So they wanted to pay $1.87 to go down there. And it looks like you can get $2.11 to go to Hebron, Kentucky. That's not bad. Exhibit materials. So that's going to be a little bit specialized. That's why they're probably paying a premium. 306 go to Utah, another dead market. And primarily that's what you're going to get out of Vegas a lot of times is exhibit materials, trade shows, that kind of thing, right? Now we hear the bone. I know. Steve, future topic, are low boards dead end the freight? Connections, direct networking is future. We'll address that now. Look, people are on low boards because they enjoy the hunt, right? If they're looking to do dedicated or try to get contracts or any of that stuff, low boards are a good place to find that and to practice. So if you take a driver that goes, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this. So they just keep themselves between Illinois and Ohio, running casually back and forth. That person's probably not interested in going to Procter & Gamble and saying, hey, I want to do 5 loads a month from you. Well, they're heavy and they go to Georgia. Well, I don't go down to Georgia. Customer rules a roost, right? Whether it's your broker, whether it's the shipper, receiver, whether it's Walmart or Joe Bob's brokerage that has the account for the local hay company, okay? Connections and direct networking has always been a part of this game. Always. It's not in the future. It's not in the past. It's been here since day one. And my thinking is if you can't develop a good relationship with the broker, who will drop you, it's not like, oh, wow, I feel really bad, so I'm going to take a loss for the next month just to keep you on. No, it's never like that. They will burn you as fast as you will burn them when rates are really high and you're still doing their contract rate of $2 a mile. It's give and take. So relationships help in the sense of consistency. In other words, if I have a broker that's always got freight coming out of Denver for a decent rate, it's in my best interest to serve them. And then I can work on the steady freight that goes into Denver. Or I can just take the highest, usually the highest paying load on any load board on any direction is going to Denver. So it's not a dead end. It's just a different platform. Some people don't have the socialization skills to be able to go out and get the contract freight. And like, think about, like, look, we're heading into a possible wartime scenario. So there's going to be a lot of military contracts out there. Well, if you don't have an older MC number and you don't have some equipment to drop and you have zero leverage trying to get that kind of freight, and so a lot of that gets put on the broker's the one that's able to get that, and then they can put anybody they want on it. So instead of trying to go out and get your own negotiation, you either find the broker or the carrier that has that negotiation in the bag. But think about this. When I was at Schneider, I was picking up loaded pallets, and the guy cursed me out simply because of the orange trailer on my back. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Let me know your grievances, and I'll forward that to my customer. I showed him customer service. And so what it boiled down to is I had no control over it because it was Schneider's deal. But I at least got the guy to be nice to me and any other Schneider driver that I knew was going in there. So I called a friend of mine. Hey, you going to Springfield? It's like, yeah, man, I'm picking up a load of pallets at this place. You ever been there? I said, yes. And you need to tell him Steve in the green truck. Because if you don't, he's going to treat you like crap because he's mad at Schneider right now. And so he goes in there, and sure enough, he goes like, oh, Schneider, bro. Yeah, man, Steve says hi. The guy in the green truck that picks up here, and he's like, oh, Steve, he's a good dude. Yeah, man. All right, yeah, back in the door 4. You're good to go. His tune completely changed simply because of the relationship that I developed, even though I had no control over the contract. Because a month later, next thing you know, instead of 3 or 4 orange trailers sitting in the lot, there were some Swift trailers in the lot. Well, he wasn't happy with them either. And then Werner got in there. He wasn't happy with them either. And so that becomes a customer issue or a customer communication issue. And so there's a lot of dynamics with connections and direct networking and all that. And you could do it off a low board. You could do it as a make a carrier lease op. There's all of this. Hey, take your bone elsewhere, dude. So bottom line is treat every relationship, every broker you can with the most absolute respect that you can possibly do. They will remember that. Communicate. We have drivers here. Shannon is a good example. She gives, when she picks up the load, she gives pictures of the bill of lading, the seal, picture of the freight secured, picture of the lock on the trailer when she departs shipper, without asking for it, without the broker asking for it. We got another guy named Randy who's in here sometimes. He does the same thing. We have several drivers that do that. I don't want to name everybody, and those people are consistently making more money than the drivers that I have to call and say, dude, broker needs an update. They're bugging my phone, right? So communication is probably one of the best things that you can do, because now Shannon has brokers calling her, hey, will you have a truck in this area? Can you call your dispatch guy and see if he's got any truck? Like, they want to work with us. right? And if you find a broker that doesn't value that, then ditch that broker, because there's a ton of loads out there unless you're in North Platte, Nebraska, right? So the load boards are a great way to test your networking skills, and it can also lead to contracts further down the future. So that's my answer, CDN. Can we get that $8 fuel from now until June? Yeah, you want to negotiate that fuel surcharge, huh? Figures will lie when liars do the figuring. Yep. "2018, I used to be able to grab laundry soap and plastic shopping bags out of Vegas to Salt Lake City." I mean, each day, fewer brokers are posting loads on general load boards. That is true. That's why you have to go to their personal load boards. That's why you have to be a member of Parade. That's why you have to be a member of Highway, because they're posting on those platforms of their own, like CH, TQL, JB Hunt. They all have their own platforms. Now, CH hardly ever posts on the load boards that I see. TQL still does, but they still have their own load board. Oh, correction. Laundry soap to Vegas, shopping bags back to Salt Lake. That was a gravy run, right? While hunting, fine, but there are thousands of loads off the load boards. This requires extra effort to source these loads. You know what, CDN? I was made fun of by other YouTubers for saying things like the best loads in the spot market aren't on the load boards. I've been saying that for years. And I see evidence of that every day in the position that I'm in. Every single day. So I agree with that. Brokers have loads. Get this. I'm going to tell you guys an industry secret. You ready? Brokers have loads that they're not posting on load boards because they can only trust a certain amount of carriers to them. They don't want the one and done, non-speaking, non-domicile CDL people doing this fancy run that they have. So you know what? They go through their carrier networks first, through email, through phone calls. And I know that freight is on the rise when I get a ton of phone calls from various brokers like, hey, they see you're a carrier in Michigan. Do you have capacity for X amount of loads coming out of Michigan? Because they have no idea how we're structured. So the best, and people made fun of me for that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Just like I learned that from Landstar. Landstar, the best loads were not on that Landstar load board. You know, if you go to the Guilty by Association truck show and you watch the convoy, the first 10 trucks who paid the big money to be up at the front of that convoy, most of them are Landstar trucks. Do you think that they're pulling generic freight off of the pajama agents, off the Landstar load board, to be able to afford the ability to do that with their fancy trucks? No. They're doing this stuff with the relationships that they've established. That's where one of the failings that I had at Landstar, I was never able to make those connections with anybody. And the ones that I did weren't good in and of themselves. And so they ended up losing their stuff as well. Had I given it a little bit more time, I probably could have done that. So if you're at Landstar and you're still struggling off their drive-in load board, try to find the direct agents that have the direct freight and have a relationship with that. But see, here's the problem with that, is that if you're very specific, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this, I don't do this. That's the last thing an agent wants to hear. That's the last thing a broker wants to hear. That's the last thing a customer wants to hear. Right? Thank you, CDN. Fuel surcharge already negotiated till June. I got a nice bump this week. Good. Excellent analysis. Thank you. Heavy, thick gravy. There you go. Those multi-stop loads that we're talking about earlier rarely get posted on the board. Exactly. And if they are, it's because they're being co-brokered or they're up for bid and they may not even have the loads, right? Because I do know that the broker that does them told me that they can do spot bids now on them. So just kind of keep that in mind. Look, it's a competitive market. The shippers want the lowest price. We want the highest price. The brokers are caught in the middle trying to balance the two. And you got to know if you're in North Platte, Nebraska, you got zero leverage. If you have a 5 mile per gallon semi truck, you've got very little leverage. If you only want to work a 2 or 3 state area and only want to do 35,000 or less pounds loads, you have zero leverage. And so if you have 1 million people doing the same thing and you're doing less than they're willing to do, you're going to struggle. It's simple, not easy. It's simple. It's natural. That's the natural order of things. I don't care if you're talking about trucking, anything else. Freight Swami's got 340 out of Jacksonville, Florida, Bridgeport. How heavy was that load, Freight Swami? All of them are spot now, yeah. The ones out of the upper Midwest, CFH, it's half and half. But we've had 3 drivers take advantage of the one up in the upper Midwest and making really killer money right now. See, sometimes I'll find a load like that and I'll have the driver recheck, well, it's too heavy. Oh, you got 8. So home run, right? You got out of Florida. Now, I don't know what Bridgeport, Alabama looks like, but you got out of Florida for over $3 a mile at 8,500 pounds. Even if it's 200 miles, you're probably in a better spot than Bridgeport, Alabama. So let's take a look. Let's do Bridgeport. Is it Bridgeport, Alabama? Oh, there it is. Now, is this van? Freight Swami, that might make a difference. It might make you look like a fool. Well, yeah, it's flatbed. It's supposed to be that. 864 loads for today. Right? Now, if we do Jacksonville, I bet you it's going to be higher. The rates are going to be lower. Oh, no. 423 loads. So your leverage is better in Alabama. So you got over $3 a mile to go to a better area without having the deadhead, unless you deliver Miami and deadhead up to Jacksonville. But still, you're in a better spot, right? Okay. What am I doing? I'm just spouting nonsense that no one listens to. Okay, Dryman, good deal. I'm in a bad spot. It's snowing, right? Had a couple of trucks say, send me to Florida, dude. I'm like, okay. Godfather's here. Look busy. Start over. Like trucking, just sitting around talking about how much we love trucking, right? And look, Like Trucking is a member of my channel. How cool is that? So is CFH with his ironic name. So, and you can literally go to any of these. Like, let's go back to Ohio. Let's do the highest rate per mile, which brings up usually the short haul stuff or the high pan mid-range stuff, right? Ohio to PA, $17 a mile, $1,200 to go 67 miles. Now it says hazmat. Nope. Picks up Tuesday, delivers Wednesday next week. That's probably a contracted rate. Here we go. $1,000 to go from Lucky, Ohio to South Bend, Indiana. This is your load. Lucky, Ohio to South Bend, Indiana. It goes from one good market to another. But it's 44,000 pounds. It's solar panels, so it's going to be a little bit extra, right? But they're paying $1,000 over the market rate of 612 to 711, right? But it's 44,000 pounds, Steve, and fields for solar panels suck. Well, that's why it's paying $300 more than market average. Picks up on Sunday, too, so there's a little bit of leverage there. Actually, I know this load. Sterling was doing these killer freight solution loads when he was here. Easy runs, warehouse to warehouse usually. There's a bunch of them. You know why? Because Keller has that contract. Okay? They have that contract. So guess what? You do one of these Lucky, Ohio to South Bend, Indiana loads, and you go, hey, you got anything going back? If not, you can round trip this and still make good money. Imagine you pull off 2 of these a day. That's $2,000 a day. And the more carriers they find to do that kind of thing, the less they got to post these on the load boards. Now, the only bad part is these are usually temporary. They'll run an area for like a month, and then it'll switch, right? But now, if you do this for a month straight, just round trip it, and you go, okay, you do that for a month straight. Well, now you've got a network connection relationship with this broker, right? And so now, 3 months from now, you find yourself in Ohio and you're not liking what you're seeing, you can call Keller and say, hey, remember me? Oh, yeah. How's it going? Oh, we're doing good, man. You got any more of those, solar panel loads? And like, well, they're not going to South Bend. Now they're going to, Indianapolis. You want those? I'm like, yeah, what's that paying? Da, da, da. That's how it works. That's how it works. Right? That's how it works. And the people that understand that clearer will make the money. The people chasing the money out to North Platte, Nebraska or beyond, you're struggling a little bit because you're just shooting the dart. That's all you're doing. Spray and pray. That's what you're doing. Who cares about the weight? The heavier the better for dev trucks. That's true. Jeff needs to go to Florida. DIY Semi, what's up? I tried calling you the other day. Weight doesn't matter to me if I'm not the one unloading it, right? So yeah, back to CDNs. Yeah, that's a connection you can make. I've utilized that connection, right? And guess what? Every time there's a new project with these solar panels, guess who gets an email? Me. I do. And so does 1,000 other carriers, but they would rather do that with their email system than posting on the DAP board for every Joe Schmo, whatever, to call on the load that may or may not be in good hands. And what that does is the more carriers that Keller has to do that, that gives them more leverage for the contracts later, right? So if you're not equipped to handle contract freight, find the broker that has the contract freight, not the ones getting it from a 3PL, not the ones that are trying to get it from the spot from the shipper, the ones that the broker's gone in and says, there's 2 brokers that do French's mustard. Have for the last 15 years. Those are the ones you go after. My coffee's cold now. I think I've been talking too much instead of drinking my coffee. Of course, that would look stupid if I sat there and just drank coffee and didn't talk. So. Now, there's the other side of this. There are some brokers that have this contract stuff, Look at all this red. That means traffic's kind of messed up there right now. That don't care. They post the load. That's what it is. Take it or leave it. We'll find plenty of people to do this. Right? So as long as the broker is easy to work with, you can round trip these Foster area Camp Michigans, depending if they can pick up and deliver the same day and you can get 2 a day, then you're good. But very rarely are you able to find something that consistent. And then if the broker keeps lowering the rate as you do them for a month or whatever, then it's usually time to exit. Or they quoted at a high rate to get the market share. This is what Uber did years ago. And then once they know you're dependent on it, then they start lowering the rate. So if you're quick to move on, then go for it. Here's 1,600 go from Madison, Ohio to Midland, Michigan. You can go visit Jeff. And look at this. DIY's been he doesn't have to be a member, but look how long he's been a member for my channel. 52 months. Windy as hell here in Minnesota. Yeah, I was looking at, I put this map up earlier. Yeah, you're seeing some crap up there in Wisconsin. Michigan, that's where Jeff's at. You go out. Yeah. That dog knows that when this backdrop is up, he doesn't get attention. But yeah, it's windy. You got snow. There's even a blizzard going on right here in Minnesota. Look at that blizzard warning in yeah, Duluth and some of the UP there. That's why you shouldn't live up there. Sucks. All right. I'm sure it's beautiful in the summertime. So let's take a look at California. Let's see what the outbound rates are in California. $234 to go to Shreveport. $281 to go to Washington. Of course, that's always a high lane. $2 to go to the blizzard area in Minnesota. $1.80 go to El Paso. Not great. Not worth taking a crappy paying load going into California. $15.12 to go to Salt Lake. If we do highest rate per mile, most of it's going to be going pretty much west or Colorado or Utah. You got Oregon, Nevada, Washington, New Mexico. This may not be bad. Carlsbad to Roswell, 2-day run for $3,200. And then from there, you could probably deadhead somewhere. Or you can, let's take a look at this load. See what's coming out of Roswell. Not much. Roswell to anywhere, there's 18 loads. So we'll click on that. It looks like you're deadheading to like Denver City, Seagraves, Texas. I would even go probably a 200-mile radius. Like I would grab probably, well, here's 290 to go to Florida, Lake Wales. But more likely, I'd probably grab this Loveland, Texas to DeWitt, Iowa. And that's averaging about $241 a mile. So that surprised me. Usually it's just $1.89. And then if you got Texas Interstate, you can do this Lubbock to Fort Worth, a little bit of a deadhead, but get you to Fort Worth. Fort Worth, you can go wherever you want. It's an easy one-day run. Talk them up another $100. You're probably looking at $1.90 a mile, which ain't bad for van to get out of a bad area like Roswell, right? So there's some hope there. But none of these are going to Ohio, Illinois, Indiana. So you got to two-step it, right? No. Ready for the 75-80 temps that we had only a few days ago come back, right? Glad I'm in Florida, not home in Minnesota this weekend. Yep, you're doing pretty good. Learning lessons in Minnesota is tough, right? Kitty is glad the doggo went outside. Yeah, he's been very vocal here the last couple of weeks. Mid-70s here in East Oregon by Wednesday. It's already hurricane season in Florida. Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, if you want to support the channel, there you go. We will be at Matt's. Jeff, if you got the booth number, lay it down there if you're not on the phone already. We will be at Matt's in the recruiting section. We'll be next to the food court. So when you're buying your $10 coffee, come see us. Come say hi. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Look forward to see the other contractors that are going to show up. And yeah, I'll be there from Wednesday to Saturday. So the whole time. So come hit. And it's rumored that Shannon's going to bring me a guitar so I can play it. So that's the rumor. So just go with that. But with that being said, strength for today. Hope for tomorrow. Hope that you don't have a very vocal cat. And we'll see you later. Peace.